The All-Star Game is the NHL's biggest in-season marketing event. It presents an opportunity each year for players to show off their talents and personalities to the more casual NHL fanbase. While to some hardcore fans it may not matter all that much, it does to the NHL, and it's important to them that the All-Star Game is popular and well perceived. In recent years, that hasn't been the case, enough so that the NHL has decided to make some changes to the formatting for the upcoming 2024 event in Toronto. The big new addition is the All-Star Draft, which makes its return after 9 years. That gimmick brought some of the most fun and famous moments in All-Star Game history, and is a welcome return that most fans are happy with. It's a good change to make, but unfortunately, the biggest problem with the event remains in place. The NHL does one thing that other professional sports leagues don't do. It's a relatively recent addition to the All-Star formatting, and it's one that most fans have grown to hate, if they didn't hate it right from the start. The NHL, and their event recognizing the very best players in the league each season, requires one representative from each team. Doing this seems to go against the whole point of the All-Star Game. If the event is supposed to have the best players in the league should bring the best players. That will always include bringing teammates, multiple players from the same team like McDavid and Draisaitl or McKinnon and Makar. But also, who is this representation even for? Fans of bad teams know that their teams are bad. When they've been hearing all about how bad their team is for the whole season already, it isn't going to hurt their feelings if their best player doesn't get in. Even fans of weak teams would probably rather have their guy replaced with a star player that missed out. All this is to say that sending one player from each team is dumb and doesn't make sense. It's a bad format, and with that, it spins off into creating many other problems for the All-Star Game. The most obvious and apparent flaw is that extremely obvious picks don't get in initially, or don't even get to go at all. William Nylander, the sixth highest scorer in the NHL at the time of the initial All-Star announced selections, needed to win the fan vote to get into the squad. In the Central Division, Cale Makar was omitted initially, because Nathan MacKinnon was the one representative selected. Mikko Rantanen is missing out entirely. Every year, there's been at least one instance where someone got in that probably shouldn't have, and while an obvious, in-division replacement was available. Last season, Kevin Hayes represented the Flyers, while Evgeny Malkin, Jesper Bratt, and Mika Zibanejad were among names missing out in just the Metropolitan Division. Before that, Nazem Kadri was famously not selected initially, while Brad Marchand, one of the NHL's top scorers, never got in. When every team in the NHL gets one player at the All-Star Game, 32 of the 44 players are filled in. They're hand-picked by the league themselves, leaving only 12 spots for the fans and the remaining best players to get in. With the way things are ran right now, there's almost no chance that the 44 best, or at least best suited, players to participate in the event will get in. A great example of the system's potential flaws comes with what's just happened this season. Connor Bedard was selected as the Blackhawks representative, someone whose play this season has been about borderline all-star level. Obviously, with the hype surrounding him and some of the things he's done this season, it makes complete sense that the NHL would want to have him in Toronto. But just over a week ago, Bedard got injured on a huge hit that required surgery to repair his jaw. He's been rehabbing well, but for now, let's just assume Bedard is missing the All-Star Game and the NHL needs to find a replacement. The format requires that another Hawks representative makes the team when their only real star is injured. Because of the required representation, they'll have to send someone like Jason Dickinson, who, despite having a great season, has been a career bottom to middle six forward. Because none of their players, aside from maybe Bedard, are genuine all-star level players, someone far below All-Star level is going to be going, instead of Mikko Rantanen or Roman Josi or Jason Robertson. For the integrity of the event, the best move, by far, is to just send the players that deserve the honor. Speaking of the honor, that's another much more low-key flaw with how the NHL All-Star Game is run. Bringing one player from each team, or players that don't really deserve it, devalues the accomplishment completely. If we look to the NBA, for example, they're a league that, at least in the formatting, does the event right. And because of that, going to the game actually matters. The starters there are selected in majority by fan voting, with 5 players selected as starters for both the Eastern and Western Conference. After that, the remaining reserve players are selected by NBA head coaches. There aren't any restrictions on how the NBA does things. Obviously, not everyone will agree 100% on who the best 24 players are, but in the NBA All-Star Game, it's all about the best players getting in. Because of this, the achievement means more. You can look to making the NBA All-Star Game as a legitimately impressive accolade. In the NHL, that's not the case. It's hard to see making the All-Star Game as much of an achievement, because taking the very best isn't what the selection process is about. On some level, it seems like the NHL understands the idea that an appearance at their event should mean something. It's definitely part of the reason the league was upset with players like John Scott making an appearance at the event, even though that was one of the best moments ever at the game. When looking to other sports and how they do things, or even just the past history of the NHL's All-Star Game, the flaws are clear. Because of the NHL's selection process, the NHL All-Star Game cannot be viewed as a serious accomplishment, and therefore cannot be taken seriously, or at least not as much as it could or should be. If the NHL just does away with the idea of selecting one representative from each team, it would be such a big improvement. The best available players should be there no matter what. They can always bring in some additional fan-favorite players for the skills competition too, since they opened the door to doing that in recent years. Some players won't want to be there in the first place, like always. Some might even turn it down. That's a problem in itself, but when the players can view it as an actual accomplishment to attend, and know that they're playing the true best of the best across the league, maybe their competitive spirit will be enough to will them into taking it at least a bit more seriously. The NHL is criticized often for being behind other sports leagues. They usually get around to doing the right things, just way behind everybody else. Moving to 3-on-3 in 2016 was a great idea. The return of the draft for this 2024 game is great. Hopefully, we won't have to wait another 8 years for them to make another significant positive change.